our MINWO minutes. This month, we are talking about calculating return on investment or calculating ROI. And so what we like to do in these MINWO minute videos is to essentially tie together what we've been talking about throughout the month. So you saw in our bite-sized business where we introduced the topic. You've seen in our Tactical Tip Tuesday where we talk about it more in depth and give you the tactical tip tools that you need to be able to calculate ROI in your own company. But what we like to do is make it a little bit more tangible by providing an example of how we've tackled these topics. So today I'll give you one example of how we've dealt with objective ROI, so the ones that are a little bit more quantifiable, and how we've dealt with subjective ROI. So first, let's start with objective. And for that example, we'll use an investment that we made recently. So we worked with one of the partners that we have on our platform, Part and Parcel. They essentially do social media management, social media consulting, digital marketing, the works. And what we did is we bought a package from them that was a little bit more on the expensive side. So it was about $1,300, which for us, being a new business, was a lot of money to spend. And like I mentioned in my bite-sized business video, the first thing that came to me was, dang, that's a lot of money, right? Like, we don't have much money to be putting together, to be investing in things. And it was very easy for me to want to say no and be like, let's just hold on to this money that we do have. But we realized that once we launched, the first few months would be critical for us to get new business, to get traction on social media, et cetera, et cetera. And as I mentioned in our core competencies videos last month, social media was not really any of our strengths. And so we sat down, me and my co-founders, and we decided that, okay, spending this money is something that we're probably going to have to do. But we didn't just decide out of the air, okay, yes, let's spend this money. We had to sit down and think about, if we're spending this money, what do we want to see in return for spending this money? So we came up with metrics. And so, like, as I mentioned, with objective ROIs, it's easier to see how much you're spending, right? So we knew we were spending $1,300, but it's also easier to see whether or not you're getting the return that you expect. So we set goals for how many followers we wanted to have on Instagram and on LinkedIn, which were the two platforms that she was managing for us. We set goals on how many clients new clients we wanted her work to bring to us, and how many of those new clients we wanted to convert into paid clients. And I think we set a few other metrics just so that we knew at the end of the 3 months after she was done managing our account for us, whether or not we had been successful. And so that, for me, put me at ease in order to spend that money, because I knew that, okay, once it's spent, we at least know whether or not we're getting the value that we expected or the return that we expected back on that investment. So on the subjective side, the example that we'll use there is our content strategy. So we pivoted. We started initially when we launched with blog articles. Actually, before we launched, we had already started using Medium and writing our own blog articles. And that's how we wanted to relay this kind of content to our clients and to our followers. And what we realized over time is that we weren't seeing the returns that we wanted to from the time and effort and research it required for us to write a good blog article. We would push it out there and maybe 15, 20 hits per article when we released it. And then if we did a re-release, we might get another 5 or 10 or so more. But it took us a couple of hours to be able to, 1, think of the concept, 2, think of the outline and the best way to write the blog article, and then 3, make sure that we had the research needed to make sure that the content was as accurate as possible, that we were citing sources, et cetera, et cetera. So I guess for us, the return on all of those hours that we put in to create the blog article and the few numbers of eyes that actually saw the blog article wasn't quite worth it for us. And so after we launched and we were able to talk to a few of our clients and really just like some of our peers, we realized that video content is king. And where do people go to learn new things? YouTube. My friends call YouTube University. And so I figured that if we started to get our content into video content, We could give just as much information, probably in more detail, because blog articles can only be so long before people lose interest. And then we'd be able to do them on a more frequent basis and build a little bit of intimacy between us and our clients and us and our followers. So hopefully those two examples helped on both the objective and subjective side. I would love to hear your thoughts about tough decisions that you've had to wade through and how you calculated your ROI and whether or not you thought that you got the returns that you were hoping for in those. Leave all that information in the comments below. And as always, please subscribe, turn on your notifications, and share these videos if you find them at all